Hi, I wanted to talk to you today about how to pitch your company. And this is the advice I want to give you about building your video presentation, which is a key component of your final project. So, the first thing I want to talk about is that there are four things that must be covered in your pitch. And so, there's a set of things that investors particularly want to make sure they hear. So the first question they want to know is what it is and does it work? So we want to really take a very basic explanation, the kind of explanation that you could give to a fourth grader so that they would understand what happened. So we like to say that think about a fourth grader watching Discovery Channel and how they would explain it so that they would understand this the scientific mystery or business mystery that is your business. They also want to know how far along you are and how much you have left to go. And that may be in terms of money, that may be in terms of business. They want you to mention any intellectual property, as that translates into reduced risk for investors. And all these questions need to be answered early in the presentation. Second key thing is how good is the team? And again, this addresses the execution risk. So you want to have people that have executed this kind of business before, that there are people involved who have the proper connections, that you have the right people on the bus, that the team is the people you need exactly and no extra, and then that team has a strong business and sales focus because it has to be about growing the business, because that's why they're investing. Now, this is particularly challenging for companies like you all, because you don't necessarily have the perfect team, and you have to rely as much on your idea. But what you can present is the passion for the business. So you need to indicate that you're doing what you love, and that even if you don't get money, money just makes things faster, is generally how I phrase it. That even if no one will give you money, you're going to succeed. That's the message you want to convey. The next big question is how big is the market and how do you get there? So we want to know about what the total addressable market is and what portion of that market are you going after and why. So we're not talking about we're going after 1%. We want to understand the segment that makes sense to go after first. So in the case of my own business, IRX Reminder, we're not going after all of healthcare. We're focused on the research market, and maybe we're particularly focused on a specific segment of the research market, say pain research. And then you need to describe the amount of addressable market that is, X millions. Generally, investors get interested when you're in a market that's at least 50 to 100 million. And for more extensive investments, they're looking for billion-dollar markets. So when you present your marketing information, you want to have a reasonable logic in terms of how you're defining the full market and the segment you're going after. You also need to include a realistic competitive evaluation. So the best way to understand that a market exists and how big is that it already exists, right? So you want to know who's in that space and how they're doing it. I like to talk about what is your plan for getting your first customer, your first 10 customers, and then your first 1,000 customers. Finally, you need to prove and answer the question, will anyone buy what you're selling? So you need to explain what the value is. And you need to have really an overwhelming value proposition. And determine what your true value proposition is. We like to use the so what task. So I ask you, what is your business? You read me the first line of your business summary, and I go, so what? How does that help me? And you'll answer the question. Well, again, let me use my company as an example. We are a smartphone-based clinical trial management system. So what? Well, clinical trials can cost as much as $60 million, and we can save 20% of that. So as much as $15 million can be saved, $12 million can be saved. That's a substantial amount of savings to do a study more cheaply. And so that's really the value proposition. Concept that you want to make sure that you answer is, how do you make money? And this is really the key question. So you need to carefully address that in your pitch. Your business model needs to be described, be reasonable, appropriate, and make sense in terms of its face validity, that it's executable. And so you want to present a set of forecasts, which is represented in a summarization of your cash flow analysis, and briefly explain some of the thought processes about why you believe that that market will grow, hopefully exponentially. And again, you want to talk about where these early customers are coming from, and then how that get you going and pay for your initial investment, and then how it becomes a scalable business that makes tens of millions. Okay, so those are the basics that you want to cover, and then there's some extras. One thing that you want to include typically, at least when you're presenting to venture capitalists, is what's called the ask. And so you clearly want to state, along with a sense of what you are offering in exchange. So we are looking for an investor who will contribute 20% of the value of the business, and we will give them in exchange 20%. And we believe the business is valued at $5 million, so we're looking for $1 million investment, and for which 20% of the stock will be exchanged, and perhaps that's preferred stock, which is typical. So in other words, they get their money first. You want to explain how you're going to use the funds, and it needs to be really reasonable and appropriate ways to spend that money. So they don't want you spending it on limousines and office parties. They want you to be hiring experienced salespeople who are certain with already connections into the business that can turn that into sales quickly. So they want to be activities that help you to get to a set of milestones. And generally when the ask may be divided into pieces, so we need $500,000 today, we're going to use that to hire and visit 100 universities to make sales pitches, attend 15 trade shows, something like that, and with the goal of getting our first 5 customers. Okay, and then typically they want to know what, as part of the ask, what you've put in to date. So hopefully, you've put in 100,000. Now you're asking for someone to put in $1 million. So there are also some things that you need to avoid, and because there are so many pitches, any one mistake is enough to go, oh, it's just another pitch. So there's a set of little things you need to avoid. Don't include jargon. Don't have a lot of text on the page. Don't say you're the only one in the world, because inevitably there's something sort of like you. It doesn't have to be exactly like you. You want to be able to say what's unique about you, but you also want to be, you want to be a special car, but you don't want to claim you're the only flying car, for example, because we know there's at least a couple, and we certainly know that they don't sell very well because there are not a lot of them out there flying around. Typically, you want to follow the particular format. In this case, I'm looking for, but in general, in different pitches, different companies, different venture capitalists will have a particular format. Be careful not to read your slides. You want to just have a few words on the page and be able to extemporize even more fluidly than I am doing now. And then you want to make sure that, if you prepare things on a Mac, you present on a Mac, or that you've thoroughly tested it if they happen to have a PC where you'll be presenting on. Because that's always no fun to suddenly realize you have pictures. It just makes you look sloppy, and why do I want to give money to someone who's sloppy? And never apologize up front. You just want to always be very positive. it's inevitable that this company will be the next large success for your investor. If you're going to use things like laser pointers, be very accurate. In our video presentation, that won't be an issue. One pet peeve of mine is that when you bring a USB drive, that you have your file on the top and everything else hidden away in a folder. Some people say, bring a USB, the only thing on that should be your file. And then if you want to have more than one person pitch, you need to have a good reason for that. So in your video pitch, I'm not expecting everyone in your company to contribute, but you may want to add a second person if they have a particular expertise, or if you feel it's going on a little long and you want to have a little variety. But you need to have a good reason for more than one presenter. Okay, these are things that you really need to include, or really avoid not including. You need, if you don't mention an overwhelming market advantage, something that's key, no one's going to want to invest. You need to explain what your technology does, or just as deadly, an overcomplicated explanation. If you don't mention the competition, if you never explain your business model, and these happen all the time, if you decide you're going to set yourself apart and rely on your superior extemporary skills, that's not good. You want to practice and practice so that it's a clean presentation. Don't settle on your first draft. You want to work the presentation until it's perfect. And be very careful about online demos and videos in your presentation. Now again, you'll be able to incorporate that in your video presentation, but if you're doing it live, it's always worrisome. And as someone who does the demos, it occasionally does things like lock up your computer, and that's always a problem. The prettier the presentation, the better it is. So you may have some interesting, fun things, but no matter what, it certainly needs to look good. So some things you can do to make your presentation really stand out is know your facts cold and really exude confidence. You want to have an effective cover slide with your introduction that simply explains what you do and why it matters to the investor. You want to provide simple text messages on the slide where you're augmenting them with your voiceover. You want them to quickly glance up at the slide and look back at you. And if you've got something moving there or a fancy involved picture or diagram, that takes attention away from you. They're looking at the diagram, not listening to your words. You really need in that first 30 seconds to explain the value. We are the best bagel shop concept ever to hit the airport because we serve New York bagels to New Yorkers who crave something like that. Sometimes people like to start by telling a story. It's an easy way to engage people, and that's a reasonable pitch. I'm stuck. It's 10 minutes till 5. I didn't get a present for my mother, and I want to let her know that I love her. I'm going to order a basket. I can do it in under 5 minutes and give her a treasured gift that will last a lifetime. And again, keep it as simple as you can, but tell me everything I need to hear. It's a tough compromise. But again, you got your 30 seconds to do everything you need to do. You got your first 2 minutes to kind of explain. Maybe you have 5 minutes. Maybe you have 10. But you need to keep it as simple as possible, not repeat, and tell everything they need to hear. Okay. Again, give that so what exercise a try, and that's about all the advice I have for you. I look forward to seeing your video pitch, and if there are any questions, I will post a conference to ask questions about the pitch. My pitch is not perfect either at this moment, but I will try and post my latest pitch as well so you can take a look. And see that everything is a challenge. All right. Have a great day.